Hi Sleep Friend, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maylene Call from Mrs. Call's Campers. I am in my classroom. One day, you two will be in your own classroom. But for now, you have questions. So we're doing an old-fashioned Q&A. Top 3 things college didn't prepare you for. How can you get students to take you seriously? Best classroom management you've ever used. Feeling like you don't know the content or how to teach it. Advice for if you get placed with a mentor teacher you disagree with. Okay, that intro was a tad obnoxious. Hopefully you guys are not new here, but if you are new here, I'm a kindergarten and first grade teacher. I started my teaching journey in Tennessee. I taught first grade, moved to California, taught kindergarten, and this year I'm teaching kindergarten and first grade. If you're not following me on Instagram, this is where the questions came from. So I basically reached out and asked student teachers or aspiring teachers to ask me whatever they wanted. So here we go. And I say it in every single video. I am not an expert. The only thing that I can share with you guys is my own experience and my personal views, my personal feelings, and you should take everything that anyone says on the internet with a grain of salt. You're never getting the whole picture. And with that being said, let's start. The first question is how to deal with burnout. Isn't that so sad that student teachers or aspiring teachers, whoever you are, isn't that so sad that that's the first question? I'm gonna answer it really quickly. I wouldn't say that I, at this point in my life, have felt burnout because being in the classroom is something that fuels me. And even nights that I've spent working on things in my own home, I wouldn't say that I've personally felt burnout. So maybe I'm not the best person to answer this. But I would say connect back to your passions and reevaluate really your happiness in your grade, in your school, in your state even, and see if that will play a role. I haven't dealt with burnout, but I have dealt with very unfortunate circumstances teaching last year. So that's what I had to do. I had to reevaluate what was going on. Let's move on. How to manage a chatty class who doesn't get work done. Okay, let's talk about all these tips in general really quickly. Every year you are going to have a different set of kids and different things are gonna work for those different kids. There will be things you can use year to year, but your style of teaching is also going to have to fluctuate and adjust to whatever kids you have in your classroom. So for me, what I do with a chatty class is I have them all stop and I repeat the expectation. That's what I do. I have a voice light to remind them what they should be doing. I have used the bouncy balls, quiet balls. It pops up like shh if it's too loud, or noise meters. Noise meters really help. Class Dojo has a good noise meter. I do have times in class where I let my kids talk, and I do have times where it's too much for them and I have to tell them, okay, we're gonna work for 5 minutes with our voices off and then we'll see if we can go back to a whisper level voice. You kind of just have to play it. I feel like a lot of these might be this answer, but you have to play it by ear and see what works for your class. So there are a couple of suggestions. The other thing is you also need to evaluate, is the reason they're not getting work done because they are talking, or is it because the work is too easy or too hard? Because I've made that mistake before too, where my students were working and I looked up and they were playing, and when I actually walked around, I realized some of the work was too hard for them. So they just started talking instead. So there could be a couple of things. Interview tips. Okay, I'm not going to give specifically interview tips in this video, but if you click the link in my description box, I have a whole document of questions to prepare yourself for an interview. I also have an interview vlog. You can click right up here to watch the interview vlog, and that might be helpful too. How do you incorporate social emotional learning if it's not included? Yes, I don't have a set SEL, social emotional learning curriculum. We do have counseling, which is wonderful, and our counselor is great too. But for me, on a daily basis, it is connections and conversations. Oh, I just came up with that, but I like that. Connections and conversations. I make connections with my students, and I connect also to the literature that we're reading or what we're watching, whatever we're learning about. You can make connections with the characters to your students. Conversations is the other big one. Especially because I teach kindergarten and first graders, I have to talk them through their emotions and understanding the highs, the lows, how to deal with those, that it's okay to have those emotions. I have to do a lot of modeling for them. So yeah, it's one of those things that I think you have to be very intentional with, and I definitely try to do that in my classroom too. How not to overstep the main teacher when assisting. This one, again, it's gonna depend on who your mentor teacher is and what they are like, and you kind of have to experiment. I would say it would be easier if you didn't already to come up with a plan, because typically in student teaching programs, you have some kind of plan or scheduled takeover. So maybe the first few weeks you are strictly observing, and then maybe you'll get to co-teach with them or do a single lesson, and then maybe after that you'll get to do like a certain block of time, and then maybe after that you might get the whole day teaching, whatever you decide. But I think the key to not overstepping is understanding, both parties understanding what's expected. So if your program expects you by the end of the semester to be teaching a full day, then your mentor teacher should know that. One thing that you should never do is in any way, shape, or form, you know this, I'm sure, but in any way, shape, or form, challenge your mentor teacher to do something that they've specifically asked you not to do. Or even to kind of underhandedly teach in a way that they might not agree with. And this is a hard one because you don't always get paired with a teacher who reflects what you envision your teaching style to be. But when you are in someone else's classroom, you're a guest. Even if you are a student teacher. And my aide, for example, she's my classroom aide, but my students, I say, this is your teacher too. She is your teacher. You will be, whoever students you teach, you will be their teacher. But to that teacher, you are still a guest in their classroom, and you should still tread with a lot of respect because it is a big deal. I know some mentor teachers, they don't necessarily want a student teacher. They do it maybe for the money, who knows. I had good experience with my mentor teacher. Now being a teacher myself and speaking with other teachers who've hosted student teachers, it's not easy to give up a piece of your classroom or a part of your classroom. It takes a really special kind of person to do it and to do it well. But it takes a lot for a teacher to give up a part of their classroom, to give up some amount of control of their classroom to a teacher, even if that teacher is learning. It does. It takes a lot, so I would just respect that and tread very respectfully. Advice for someone about to go into their first classroom ever, no experience, 2 semesters in. This depends. Are you saying you got a teaching job, or are you saying you're going in to observe? So I don't really know. Let me know if this was you who asked the question. Leave me a comment down below. Give me more details, and I would love to kind of help you out. When did you start buying materials for your classroom? Definitely when I was student teaching. I'm actually going to do a reaction video to my first year teacher haul. So whenever that's up, I will link it for you right up here. Please remind me in the comments. I don't know. But I want to do a reaction video and kind of talk about what I am still using, what I'm not using. I also just filmed a teacher essentials video, so I'll link that just in the description and in the I button up below, and the I button up top for you too. But I definitely started purchasing when I was student teaching, and I definitely have things to say about that. Oh, that's funny. The next question is, when should we start collecting items? Student teaching, I would say. And honestly, the biggest tip I would have for those of you who are student teaching or even in college is set aside some money. I know you guys are probably like, we're student teaching, we don't have money. But I personally worked a job when I was student teaching. Most of the student teachers I know did. Yes, it's hard. But even when you're just in college and you're not student teaching yet, you have lots of time, start setting aside some money for your future classroom, because that little budget that you make, even if you just set aside $20 a month, it's going to make a difference when you get your first classroom. I promise. Oh my gosh, 3 different people. If I already know where and what grade I'm teaching, when should I start buying things? I think that's so funny because one of the things that you really look forward to most when you are student teaching or when you're in college is getting to make your classroom your home. I love my classroom. You can start buying when you're in student teaching, but if you know where you're teaching, and you can get an idea of the classrooms and what they provide and what they don't provide. That's the biggest thing. Some classrooms have a ton of storage. Some classrooms don't have any storage. Some classrooms you need to buy shelves for, or you need to buy bins for. Some classrooms you don't. One of the things I say student teachers should absolutely buy are picture books. You're always going to use picture books no matter what grade you teach. It's pretty universal. So books, and set aside a small amount of money. Advice for if you get placed with a mentor teacher you disagree with. This can be very touchy, because do you just disagree with their style of teaching? Is it just maybe not your style? Or are they doing something that is inherently harmful to their students? With me, I had a good relationship with my, I don't know what you'd call it, cohort leader, the person who was in charge of our student teachers. I had a good relationship with her, and I had a good relationship with my mentor teacher. But I did switch for a couple months to a different mentor teacher because it was part of my program. I had to do 2 different teachers, but I was only with the second one for a very short amount of time. However, my experience in that second classroom was dreadful. It was very much a teacher who didn't have control of their classroom, who was very harmful towards the kids. I'm not going to get into details, but what I did was I very professionally spoke to my professor and I let them know why I did not feel comfortable being in the classroom. If you feel like it's genuinely something that is harmful, reach out to your cohort leader and explain why you personally don't feel comfortable in that classroom. But if it's just something you disagree with, you kind of just have to do your best to keep as good of a relationship as you can and still seek advice for them where you can, because I can guarantee your mentor teacher's reference is probably going to be pretty important. So I would just, tread carefully. That's a tough one. And if you are in that situation, I truly am sorry, because student teaching is one of those experiences that is supposed to be the thing that really solidifies that you want to be a teacher. And if you are in a situation that is just not what you envisioned, it can be hard. But just know that when you do get your own classroom, things will be different. It is a very short period of time. And do your best, even if you disagree with them, do your best to find things that they do that can help you still. Let's see. Top 3 things college didn't prepare you for. Number 1, I would say science of reading. I wish undergrad programs had more of this. Number 2, I would say, obviously it comes with the territory, behavior management. I did have a professor who gave us some good ideas, but it's one of those things where you can sit and listen to someone explain it all day, but unless you're seeing it and practicing it, it's not gonna be helpful. Very helpful. Number 3, either social emotional or how to really use curriculum in a way that works for you. I guess how to implement secret stories when your school doesn't believe in science of reading but loves balanced literacy. Science of reading, people explain it as a body of research. So maybe your school just needs to see the research. But secret stories, I use them all the time in my classroom. My battery's dying. Hold on. Okay, we're back. We're going to switch up the angles a little bit to keep things interesting. Secret stories is not a curriculum. It's not something that I don't really feel like it's something you can agree or disagree with, to be quite honest. Here are the secret stories up here. But if you go to secretstories.com, I usually link her in the description box because I talk about secret stories in like every video. She should pay me, Katie. You should pay me. She has a whole section on her website explaining what it is and why it works and all the research behind it. So do it, and then if they ask you, you have the research right there. Or if you're saying it's something you want to request, or if you've already brought it up. Or you could show them a video of a teacher using it in action and see what they say. And if you guys are not familiar with the secret stories, watch any of my vlogs, or I have a video on phonics and phonemic awareness. Actually, if you are student teaching, that would be a wonderful video for you to watch. Do you have your master's? No. I don't. I would love to get my master's. Honestly, I don't know what I would get it in. I love the idea that I will get paid more whenever I do get my master's, but there are a couple different things that I would want to get it in. Either something to do with literacy, because that's what I feel strongest about. So something to do with literacy, or something to do with development. Okay, feeling like you don't know the content or how to teach it. Here's the thing. Do you know how to do first grade math? Yes. Do you know how to teach it? Maybe. Maybe if you've seen it taught before. When I started teaching first grade, what I had to do was literally look up strategies, talk to my teammates. How do you teach this? Look at the curriculum. See how the curriculum, if you have curriculum, asks you to teach it. Try it with your kids, experiment, see what works. The only thing that is going to make you a good teacher is the feedback you get from your kids and seeing how they respond to a certain way you present the information. So there are definitely times that I'm teaching that I know the best way, I think, to teach something, and maybe a different strategy clicks a little bit more with them. It is constantly experimenting to try to figure out the best flow for you and your students, and I don't think you should be worried about not knowing the content. You can always do research before you start something. For us in the younger grades, a lot of people think it's easy to teach because, oh, it's the ABCs, or oh, it's this, or oh, it's that. But there's always a body of research behind what we do. So start getting comfortable looking more into that side of things, observing other teachers and how they teach things, and even asking them. Remember, it's also okay if you teach a lesson and it just totally bombs, because it happens to all of us. Do not be afraid to fail. Just be willing to experiment. When did you start searching for and applying for jobs when student teaching? While I was student teaching. Actually interviewed at the school that I student taught at. Technically I got the job. It was the worst interview ever. I think I have a video on it. But while I was student teaching. So I interviewed at the school that I student taught at, and I had another interview at a different school. I was moving cities, so I couldn't teach where I was student teaching. But while I was student teaching. That was such a long-winded answer. What is your biggest tip for someone going into student teaching? I am so nervous. Number one, it's okay to be nervous. You're nervous because you are passionate. You're nervous because you're excited. You're nervous because you don't know what to expect. So my number one tip for you is going to be enjoy it and document it. Document as much as you can. I know a lot of programs you have to videotape yourself for some kind of final project. In the early days, your mentor teacher should know at some point you will have to be filming yourself. It is always good practice for you and the kids to be filming yourself. I still have videos of when I was student teaching, and honestly, it's really, really cool to look back and see the growth. And I promise you, if you film yourself when you are teaching, you will learn so much. You'll notice all the subtle things you do. You'll notice things you're not picking up on. You'll notice your body language. It will make you a better teacher. So I would say my number one tip, have fun. Number two tip, maybe number 1.5 tip is to film yourself. Obviously, you film yourself during student teaching, you can't post that video anywhere. You have to protect your students' privacy. I'm also really careful about that on my channel. I always change student voices, don't show student faces, none of that. But it is helpful for you. Oh, this is a fun one. What is a hack that will make my life easier as a student teacher? This is a good question, but I don't know. I would say what you should do when you're student teaching is create a Google Drive. I've said this before, but make like a running list of things that you want for your classroom or ideas, things like that. But one of the things you should be doing is creating a Google Drive. I've shown on my channel before how I organize it. I might make a TikTok and show you guys too. But make a Google Drive with all of your resources, and any resources you start collecting, put it in that Google Drive. I'm sorry, I can't think of a good student teaching hack. Maybe I will think of one later and post it on my Instagram stories for you. How do you stay happy in your first year of teaching? First year teacher here. I came in halfway through. My first year teaching, it makes me emotional to think back because I really had a good first year teaching, and I know that not everyone does. But I think I was so excited to be a teacher, to finally, do something that made me feel fulfilled, to finally have my own classroom and my own kids after so long of wanting it and working for it. And I didn't have any point in the year where I was genuinely just not happy. There were certain problems I ran into my first year, but I was always happy to be there. And if you are not happy your first year of teaching, and you said you did come in halfway through, maybe that's not the space for you. And I also want you guys to know that year to year, things are going to change, and you might have years where you feel like you are the best teacher, or you might have years where your class is a struggle. Last year, I struggled with some of my students. You might have years where you are with an admin that you don't like, or you might have years where you're forced to do things in your classroom that you really don't like doing. You might have years where you're really not happy. And even teachers who have been teaching for years, every teacher I've talked to has had experiences like that where they genuinely had to question, am I in the right career, or am I in the right place? Is this the right grade for me? And it's hard. It's not something that I can really give you an answer for, because that's something that's going to be really personal to you. But I do wish you the best of luck. How can you get students to take you seriously? I'm struggling with the balance. I think different teachers would answer this very differently. For me, I am a very playful teacher. And I have to remind my students sometimes, is it time to work or is it time to play? What are we supposed to be doing right now? I do love the 3-question system, format, strategy, where you say, what are you doing? What are you supposed to be doing? What are you going to do? That one always kind of reels them back in for me, because they know the expectation, and if they don't know it, you have a chance to clarify it for them, and they also have the chance to make the decision on their own to meet your expectation, whatever that is. You asking this as a student teacher, how do you get the kids to take you seriously, makes me think that maybe the kids don't necessarily see you as their teacher. And I'm very grateful, because my mentor teacher, when she introduced me, she said, this is going to be your teacher. So same thing I do with my aide, like, this is your teacher. Maybe that same introduction didn't happen for you, and that could be be where you need to meet back with your mentor teacher and just say, I think it would make a difference to the students if whatever. And these conversations are really hard to have, but once you have them, you're going to be grateful that you did. The other thing is, if she doesn't introduce you like that, you could also tell them that you are their teacher. Okay, next question. Oh, this is kind of similar. How do you make your mentor teacher view you as a co-teacher and not their personal assistant? Okay. We've already talked about your mentor teacher kind of understanding the level of control you will have at the classroom through various points in time. Maybe you don't have that conversation at all with them. Maybe your program doesn't even lay out, by week 3, you'll do this. By week 6, you'll do this. Maybe you're completely on your own. And what I would suggest doing is making some sort of list and showing them, these are the things I would love to accomplish with your help, and come up with a plan together. So if you're not given one, let them know, I would love to do this, and this. How can we figure this out? How can we make this work? What ideas do you have to get me from this point to that point? It's no matter what, it's going to be a conversation. If they are using you more as someone who files their papers or grades the things or sits back while they are teaching, I would come to them with a list of things and say, this is what I'd like to accomplish with your help. What ideas do you have? And that way they can kind of see, without you being disrespectful or rude, they will be able to see that they need to do something to get you to this point. And if that doesn't work, and that relationship is solely a assistant relationship, I would go to your cohort, whoever is in charge of your student teaching. Why am I forgetting the term? But I would go to them and say, I'm not getting X, Y, and Z in my student teaching placement. Do you have suggestions? And see what you guys can come up with. Okay, how to organize curriculum for future years. Future music teacher here. Good for you. I did mention briefly a Google Drive. I would say that. I don't really know anything about curriculum for music, but I'm guessing a lot of what you might have is digital. I would organize it in a Google Drive. You can access your Google Drive from anywhere, and I started my first year of teaching, or last year. I started my first year, but I don't think I really organized it until last year, and it makes a huge difference. So, and you could search it too, so I would do that. Best classroom management you've ever used. I would say callbacks. Yeah, because your students are super engaged. But if you mean just like fun, I would say my smart cookies. These things right here, my students love earning a smart cookie for centers. I also have a voice level light that was right above that. That works really well. Hopefully you watch my vlogs and you see all those little fun details. What do you wish you knew before starting teaching? I'm not going to say that this is something I wish I knew, but it was a wake-up call to me when I realized that my experience in my school was not anything like experiences at another school. I've taught in 3 different schools, 2 different states, and every single experience has been so different. And I think it would have been helpful to know that classrooms and schools and administration and districts and all of those things are all so different, because it might have made me feel a little bit better about finding a place that I really liked. And I had an amazing first year. I think that year was one of my best years, but it is helpful to know going in, things can be very, very different. And especially a lot of you guys asking, how do you deal with burnout? How do you deal with this? What if you're struggling? Just know that your experience is not gonna be the same. And a good district, a good admin, a good team is gonna make a huge difference for you. This is funny. How do you really know about a school culture, admin before interviewing? If you watched my video working in a toxic school, hopefully I can remember to link all these in the description box. My interview last year at the school that I had the worst time with, I knew it was not the school for me, but I was desperate for a job. Would I ever settle again? Oh, I hope not. I hope not. You can get an idea just by walking in the door how things feel. And if you can't, you can ask questions like, what do you do to promote a positive environment? What would you say your favorite thing about your school is? What is something that you've done in your school that's made a difference? Ask those kind of questions. Otherwise, you're not really going to know. One thing that I did do, and I don't know if I've ever admitted this, but I stalk my schools before I apply to them. And I try to find teachers on social media. And what I've done, this is going to sound, it's going to sound a kind of way. I've directly messaged teachers, and I have to start with the whole, I'm so sorry if this is creepy. I was doing some research on the school. I found you linked through whatever. I would love to know if you genuinely enjoy working at this school, because it's somewhere that I could potentially see myself at. You will get honest answers. If you can find somehow, like go to locations, all these things that you can do on Instagram or Facebook, to find teachers linked, see if any of the names are on there. I know it's creepy, but I'm just being honest with you. I did it, and you'll get some real answers. Would you believe me if I told you I'm not even halfway through the questions? I want to keep this video super short and to the point. If you guys want me to do a part 2, please like this video and leave a comment and let me know. A lot of times I get requests to film a video and then it doesn't do as well as I thought it did, but if this is something you're interested in listening more about, or if you just like the way that I explain things, let me know in the comments, and I would be willing to come back to some of these questions. I really enjoy helping teachers. It's one of my favorite things to do. I really enjoy talking to future teachers and sharing as much as I can with them. That's the whole point of my YouTube channel. So please, if this was helpful, make sure you subscribe and join our family. Like this video if it was helpful, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.